Stakeholders have called for a strong electoral reform to strengthen Nigeria's electoral process and inspire more confidence in the outcomes of electoral contests in the country. They say Nigeria should take cue from Kenya, whose all elections petition cases, they were all resolved within weeks of the declaration of the outcome of the presidential election and before the inauguration of the new president. Well, joining us now is Fisayo Eshan Olusegan, the partner at Ivy Law Practice, and he'll be discussing the need for Nigeria's electoral reform to be addressed and the need to resolve election petitions before inauguration of winners, just as it happened back in Kenya and in other countries. Welcome back to Newsday. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, we haven't heard much about our electoral reform process. The National Assembly back in December of 2020, yes, and January of 2021 was the last time we heard of any edits or any push. How dire could this be if we don't have our electoral reform process smoothed out before we get into this very busy election season?
First of all, the process to amend the existing electoral laws is a bit cumbersome. And 2023 is around the corner.
Right.
So it would seem that it's a bit too late if you want to think of it, because it's the legislatures that amend the laws and the executive implement it. So the idea may be to at least ensure that what we have delivers on its promises to the Nigerian populace. Because by law, parties will have 150 days before the elections to start campaigns and all that. And that is codified, that's rigid. I might imagine that the next circle of experience or of elections is what we should bear in mind for this kind of fundamental change. But what we have now, if well implemented, I think can deliver a fair result. Yes, I think so.
Okay, one of the hallmarks of the Kenyan election was the use of technology, and everybody is raving about. Now, how achievable is it to transform the process of resolving disputes?
Yes.
For example, in a Nigerian election, without the use of technology, when technology is becoming such a contentious issue concerning our electoral process locally?
Okay, the use of technology in an election is not a settled issue globally. The American system had their own, drawbacks, a while back. So I think for the Kenyan one, the most important point there is the fact that without the credible intervention of the courts, the country might have ended up in chaos, which is why our courts must appreciate, the crucial role they play in, civil coexistence between, the forces in our economy. If the courts did not credibly handle the petitions and, the issues that came after the elections in Kenya, we probably would have heard of a country in, a crisis today. So that's the first point, that, look, the court has a lot of role to play in terms of how the kind of comfort, the kind of assurance that the electoral process gives to Nigerians as a whole. Our courts have a major role to play in that regard. And that was exactly what happened in Kenya.
But what does that do to the credibility of INEC?
Well, you see, another drop or another difference is that the Nigerian situation is a lot more bigger than Kenya. It's with the complexities that how electoral bodies face. Kenya is just about maybe their last census of 2019, maybe about 47 million. And you can imagine the process for collation, the process for, pulling, evidences together, documents. It's a lot. It is a lot. Going to close to 200,000 polling units. It's a lot.
But talking about the process being cumbersome, I do know that in Kenya, several bodies can mediate on electoral disputes. Yeah. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and the Judiciary. Isn't this something that can be viable here in Nigeria so that we can help decongest the courts?
The adjudication of issues arising from high elections, they're governed by the Constitution, and they're governed by the Electoral Act. In the case of the presidential elections, the petition goes straight away to the Court of Appeal. The seat has a tribunal of first instance, and then eventually to the Supreme Court. And there are strict timelines for that, 180 days thereabout and whatnot. So in our own case, it's governed by law. It's not something you can open up to some subformal, intervention. It's governed by the Constitution itself. It's at that level. We're talking of, the headship of the executive of Nigeria. So it's a bit sensitive. I'm not too sure if that will be an option for now to open it to another body, because it's a constitutional issue. And by law, ordinarily, it's the Supreme Court that rarely, has that final say when it comes to matters of the Constitution. So you don't want to open that fundamental matters like that to arbitral bodies or some, other body, So, yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And let's speak about this judiciary. I think the last time we had you here, if I remember correctly, the former CGN was on his way out. We have a new CGN now.
Yes, we do.
We did hear of a little bit of an issue that they were having within the court system, within the law. It was published. We haven't heard much about that. There's a new CGN. Yes. And now we're talking about this electoral reform process, which would rely heavily on the judiciary to carry out their work. But we know they're overburdened. Yeah. We know there are issues of corruption. We know there's issues of multiple judgments in different parts of the country. What faith do Nigerian citizens have in the judiciary to actually carry out such a heavy burden if worse comes to worse, and there's like court cases flying back and forth due to electoral mismanagement or misappropriation?
All right. I personally think that the Nigerian judiciary has not done badly. They're not perfect. There's a lot of burdens and challenges they need to resolve. But if you also look at the structure, within which, they carry out what they should. First of all, they are not independent. They still are hinged to the executive in a lot of respect when it comes to funding and all that. That's one. Two, I think that, because if you've not been part of that proceedings before, the electoral contest, it's a rigorous, proceeding. The sheer volume of documents that you needed to plow through, it's a lot. It's mind-blowing, and the question is, it's been suggested by some that maybe retired judges should be engaged, to relieve, the current one, and different ideas. But the depth of work there, it's a lot, and to conclude it within 180 days, I will give credence to them because it's something you do every day, Sometimes they sit till, it's back to back because the times are limited and the times are governed by law within which you should, round off that proceeding. So Nigeria is big. And for me, I will say that maybe technology should help in terms of collation of proof and the quality of proof, so a lot of things that take time physically, technology can help to, stem it down, to leave room for the tribunal to really sit down and look at the main issues. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in, of course, to discuss with us. We hope to see you sometime soon.